Good day and welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about sales. So this video is going to be all about what I'm going to do or how I'm doing the sales for the Black Pearl. These are the sales that come with the Pearl, and they're nice, right? So got a little bit of flash on the yard arm here, but for the most part, these are nice sales. There's good detail. We've got all the rigging, anchor points and everything in them, and there's even a nice texture to it. So the shape is nice. So the sails themselves are nice. With that said, there's a difference between plastic sails and cloth sails, and cloth sails have just a look to them that are unique. So there is a gentleman that I follow on the Insta who has a wonderful technique for making cloth sails, and I will actually put the link below. And I apologize for my hand. I've been painting, so please, I'm sorry for the cruddy hand. I will put the link below here for Harry and his method for making cloth sails. I have found them to be an excellent resource and an excellent option. With that said, why would I make a video if there's already one for what I'm doing? And obviously, because I'm not going to do that. His technique is great for just about every ship that you're going to do. I want the pearl to be the ghost pearl, right? So the black pearl that looks like this. Okay, so in that picture, the sails are shredded, and just chipping holes in this isn't going to do it, and shredding cloth was going to be my option. And then I remembered I had a technique for working with miniatures on doing something different, and this is what I've come up with. Now, this obviously is not finished. This was my prototype, so actually using this as my form, and this is the sail that replaces it. And you can see one of the problems with these is the yard arms are actually molded into all of the sails, so that's going to be a problem in that I need to cut the yard arm off. It also will get a little creative with the molding process, but we'll get to that. So how do I turn this into this? And that's what I'm going to walk you through. I am content with what this came out looking like. So when this actually gets molded up and mounted on the pearl, I still have some painting and shading and other detail work to do on this thing, but for the most part, this is what I'm after. How did I do this? The idea came to me when I saw videos on techniques for doing water effects, and essentially using toilet, washroom paper as a medium, and using that to get the wave effect. And I remembered way back when I used to make little miniatures for wargaming that I would make zombies out of skeletons by using toilet tissue and glue to make shredded flesh. And this ends up giving me exactly the same result. Now, this hole was actually an accident, but it's a Bob Ross happy accident because it showed me exactly what I wanted. The cloth is shredded, and then all I need to do is form that shredded cloth, and it will give me what I want. So let's go to the messy bench, and I'll walk you through the steps on how to do this. It's actually very straightforward and very simple, but there's a process to it. So let's go to the messy bench. Okay, so here we are at the messy bench, and yes, this is a messy task, so plan for it, expect it, and don't be surprised. And I do apologize, the lighting here isn't ideal, but this is my messy bench, and this will make a mess. You could probably find a way to make it not quite so much, but I don't. So a couple of things you need. This I use. You don't need it, but because I do casting, I have this, so I'm going to use it. This is ease release. It's basically a mold release spray. You spray this into silicone molds when you're going to throw castings of things. This is like $8, either online or at worst case smooth on. I use this all the time, so I have it, and I just hit the surface of the plastic with that just to help getting the glued toilet tissue off of there without shredding. It may not be necessary. It really probably isn't necessary if you do it before it really gets hard and attacks in. There's a little bit of a surface to the sail, which is why I use it. So that's just a why. It's up to you. A brush, and I use these brushes. I would prefer to have a smaller one, but I didn't have a smaller one, so this is what I'm going to use. The nice thing is we're using a water-based glue, so you can wash this out and use it again. I've used this thing like 3 or 4 times. And then a mix of PVA glue and water. Essentially what I did is I took this stuff, this Ultimate Tight Bond 3, and this is water resistant, and I use this for many other things, which is why I have a big bottle of this. But interior, exterior, you want the exterior because you want this to be waterproof, and this is considered waterproof once it dries. It is a water-based glue, so you can mix it with water, and that's what I've done here. And I have my handy stir stick, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this up and try and make that a nice even consistency. And now, the other thing I'm going to say, because I do this all the time, be ready to sort of assembly line this. So if I had the room, I'd have all the sails laid out so that I wouldn't waste this glue, because I don't need anywhere near this much. I need like 3 dippings of my brush into this. But this is what it is, so I will actually put a cap on this, and hopefully most of this glue will last till the next time I sit down to go do the next set of sails. But just a heads up. And then you need tissue paper, and I also am using these threads. So here we go. First thing you do is you cut off your sail and trim it if you're going to. Now I am leaving the yard arm on for a reason. You see, I started to trim it to make sure that I could do so and I could get the yard arm off before I even started this process. But I leave the yard arm on because that will give me a little bit of extra cloth to use so that I can fold over and use it to actually tie it on to the yard arm later. And we'll get to that when I actually put them on. When you cut your sails off, be careful of these tie downs. If you're going to use these sails, be extra careful because you need them. They look like the sprue gates. I almost clipped through this one because I wasn't paying attention. There's a sprue gate here, and there are sprue gates on the tops of each one of these. And if you're not paying attention, this will look like a sprue gate and you'll just clip it off. The other thing I did is I marked the sail. So this is part number 4. And then I will keep this sail with the sail I finished so that I know which part's which. Okay? So that's just a heads up. Now this tape is on my surface. This is my keep things nice surface because I was trying something. I was basically taping down these things as I went at first. And then I realized I don't need to, which is why the tape's there. And this will be me doing the thing without that. And then you need scissors to cut. So what we're going to do here is, this is going to be a little challenging to work around the camera, but it is what it is. So what we do is I take tissue paper and I lay it over. Now this is not quite wide enough, so I am going to, now there's 2 things I could do. I could let it shred at the bottom, right? Or what I can do, which is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put these in 2 pieces, and I will go ahead and let the sail be a 2-part and let that be a seam. Okay, so I have my second set aside, my second piece set aside, and then really all I do, it's pretty straightforward. I dip my brush in the glue, and I make sure I get the glue, and then I'm going to start here at the top, and I'm just going to lay this on, and you will see that, you know, the sail wants to do that, so you kind of brush it gently, and the water will absorb into the cloth, and then it will shape to the shape of the sail underneath. Then we're going to come back here and do a couple things, but first thing we need to do is get this on. And then just kind of dab here at the sides. And you got to be very, very careful, because this will tear. And you saw that on the one. Now you see how this is buckling in, and that's actually kind of what I want. So now that I have that one on, I will get this other piece, right? And I will lay that at that seam. Now we'll kind of nudge it in place there. I'll come back, get a little more of this, and then I'll just again dab this on. I'm trying not to pull, because if I pull, I'm going to shred the cloth. And this is why I don't necessarily recommend this technique for any of the other ships. So like I really recommend Harry's technique for the cloth sails, because of how easily these tear. Now, I mean, you may wish to use this technique for cloth sails for, you know, a non-shredded thing. It's up to you if you want to try it. I think the flexibility of the fact that the pearl is haunted allows for this to be a little, it allows some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some freedom. Now this is where the fun starts. And this is where you just kind of take thread, and what you're going to do is you're going to cut pieces of thread. Just one piece of thread at a time. And you're going to lay that where the binding ropes are, or where the seam ropes are on the sail. And I use a tool, basically a stick. And you see that? See how that shreds? And I use a stick, basically to get that to stay in place. And then I just go right down the line with these pieces of thread into, and you can see where the binding pieces are, right? And you just lay them in. And you just walk right down the sail, putting these on. Now, what I had done before was I had I'd put the sail down, then I taped these things to the board so that they were all nice and tight. But then it turns out that, well, I don't really need to do that. And I would, if you're going to do this for a non-shredded sail, right? So and you see how I'm kind of pulling on that, right? And I'm kind of doing my best to keep that straight. What I do is put my hand down there, and I let the glue hold it. And it's a little fiddly. Okay, it's a lot fiddly, but that's okay. It will go. What I may do here Just tap it a little bit with glue, and that'll help hold that in. And again, I just tapped it, right? So that glue is going to flow because it's wet. It's going to flow and level out. I'm not going to have seams and bumps and buckles and things, right? And I'm using the fact that the glue is sticky to help keep that, go in place. Now, I am noticing that the glue is drying. Now remember, I only did half a sail this way on the last one, so I didn't quite have that challenge where the glue was drying on me. And what I would normally do, or what I think I should be doing, is I try and keep that in the channels where the reinforcement seams are on the form. But again, I'm using the fact that this is a shredded sail to give me a little more flexibility on what I end up with. So what I think I'll do here is just add a little more. So I'm adding a little more glue to the next couple of spaces I'm going to go to give myself a little more flexibility here. Now this is a little challenging to do while I'm filming, but it's working. So now you can see how what I'm doing here is I'm kind of pushing down here, and I'll probably come, and I'm going to come back with this here in a minute. And you can see how yeah, that helped. Putting that little bit of extra glue there helped. So and yes, I intentionally leave a little extra thread hanging off both sides because I'm going to use that. Maybe is that like this thread hanging off the top here. You know, it just gives me something to work with. What I'm doing, I'm just using cloth or a cotton dual duty thread. There's nothing really special about it. If you were doing a white sail, I'd recommend using white thread. Unless you want the contrast. Because when you paint it, I mean, I do go back and paint it, right? So if you're doing a white sail, you may not even need to because of the color this, and you'll see when this dries up what I mean by that. I'm getting myself a little more glue. I'm going to come in here. And I'm just going to tap again. And again, I'm just doing this to give me a little more bite to the glue. This has started to dry. Now, so I know you're asking. Oh, I don't know you're asking, but I can hear myself ask the question. How do I shred it? I mean, okay, I want the sail shredded. Why am I not doing that right now? And I'm not doing that right now because I want these to be in place. And that's what I kind of discovered when I did the first one. Because I had taped those down, the reinforcing ropes didn't move. So the shredding really didn't make a difference. So what I'm going to do with this one, we'll get to that when we get to that step, is we will come back and then before we paint it, and before we, so the paint's going to act like a seal, Right? It's going to seal up the glue and make it waterproof. But we can, see how that's shredding right there because of the glue, or because of how wet it is. Okay, I'm almost there. Have this one. And I have this guy. I need to see where it is. There. I needed to see where that one was. I couldn't. So just use my stick to pat that down. And this guy here will go right. I need to get my hands to work. There we go. That guy there. And you saw my hand stuck on that one. That happens. So you see how I'm using the stick to hold things down before I pull my hand away? It's because my fingers get this glue on it, and then it gets sticky, and then I can't control what I'm stuck to. So now I've got that down. We're about going to let that dry. But what I am going to do here first is a little bit of this. Now I think what I want is I do want another one to run the length this bottom. I want one down this rope. Don't think I did this on the other one, but I do want one here. I'm also going to do this here just to help hold that in place. And I'm trying to not let this stick to my surface. As I'm sitting here thinking about it, the thought comes to mind that it probably wouldn't hurt to have taped down wax paper, because then I don't need to worry about it sticking, because it won't. There we go. So that will hold, that will help that. There we go. So there. So now that's what we have. We have the, now if you want to, right, like if you want to go ahead and mess with this, you could just shred a little here. I'm only going to do a little bit. So let a couple of these, because I'm going to want those to be as solid as possible and try to pull this off. So there we go. Put a little bit more glue there, just to reinforce it. There. So there we go. That's this part. So we are going to let that dry, and we will come back to that later after it's dried, and then we'll pull it off. So in a few moments, we will be back. Okay, now we're back. It's been probably about 2 hours my time, and you can see that it is mostly dry with, I mean, it's still damp in some places, especially up around here, but this is about where I want to work on it. Now, the glue will have settled on the corner points, and it will affix this to the table that I'm working on. So the first thing I'm going to try and do is get this off of here, hopefully without pulling things off. Now this here is stuck, so we're going to get a knife or scissors or something. I think I can use the scissors. All right, so I'd gone and cleaned everything up, so let me get these scissors here. And then what I'm going to do is snip these guys off of there. Where am I stuck there? Okay, so now that I have that off, Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start in a corner, and we're just going to peel this off. And I work slowly. And if you get glue on your fingers when you're doing this, you will find that it will make this want to stick to your hand. So try not to. Now you see how there's still damp there at that bottom. And I'm just going to slowly peel this up. And it should come mostly off just like that. Now I'm going to run into these spots here where it's catching on that right there. There. Now it should just pull right off. You see, and you see how where I tore that, and there I am. So now I have that, right? And what I'm going to do now is, now that that's loose, I'm going to let this sort of sit there and finish drying. But now I have the majority of the glue off of the sail. So, or off, the glue and the sail piece off of the plastic part. Now you see we've got some tears here up top, and that's because it's still damp. And that's because of where because the glue sort of settled down there, it dried that slowly. Now another option is I could come back here and I could peel this much up and let that sit a little more and get harder. But what I've done by pulling this up now, I've allowed that to sort of separate off of where it was affixed. And so when I come back later, there's only be a few places where that will still be stuck. So we're going to let that dry. And I'll let that dry for a while now. And then I can just peel that off, and then we'll be at our next step. All right, so now it's basically dry. Still a little damp, but for the most part, it's dried. So then the next step is to trim it. And I will leave the top part alone. And what I tend to do is this part right here, the one that has the shape of the yard arm and everything, I'll tend to leave it as it is. In this case, it's really shredded, so that's actually, again, kind of the look I wanted. And I'll let it work from there. But all I do now is I go and I cut, and this is also difficult to do in, right under camera. But what I'll do is we'll just cut. And I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me do this. So now what we have is the sail. And you can see that, essentially what we have is a very, very thin sheet of PVA glue that's hardened. But you can do a lot with it, right? And it's going to give that very, very stiff cloth look. And you can see there, remember how we were talking about the way things are ripping, right? When we were dealing with them before, that's the effect we can look at. It gets that very shredded look. So what I will do is, this is still a little bit damp. I'm going to let this harden up a little bit more until tomorrow. Now, something I haven't done, and I think we're going to do that now, is I'm thinking about going back and trying to do a little more damage to that before I let this finish hardening. So I'm going to go ahead and get a poke, and I want to get something that's got some water in it, and then we will come back and see about trying. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the glue, my glue water, my PVA water, because that will give me a bit more it'll harden up the edges a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get these things a little bit damp again. And then I'm going to try to just take something I can and see if I can, I want to scratch that, see if I can actually make damage to this. Now, what I may be finding out here is that what I want is I might want to be doing the damaging of the cloth in that first round, right? And I didn't here, partly because I wanted to show you guys what we're doing, and partly because I didn't know what the result would be. So I'm going to let this get damp here a little bit. And so this is, I'm actually trying this new technique out right in front of you. So we'll see if that is any better. Otherwise, I will just go ahead and use the concept of shredding this thing when I make them. So you can see that you get sort of a look on these damp parts, and it gives that soft cloth ripped look. So, and I don't want it to look cut, I want it to look torn. Let's see if I just sort of pull that down there. So now if you look at that seam, right, it's sort of sharp, where this is more shredded. I'm going to let that sort of come down, and I'll use that because this is one of the main sails and it won't be totally broken. I'll let it just be ripped because some of the sails are just in absolute tatters, like the darned if I can remember what they're called, the ones that go angular from one mast to the other, the stays, I think. I don't remember if that's what they're called or not. But those are just shredded. There's like not much left of them, where a lot of the main sails just have holes in them. So yeah, so these are giving me more of a cut look, and that's not quite what I'm after. Let me see if I can get these here to open up a bit more. And this is I'm trying just to see if I can deal with it without getting them wet. But the getting them wet gives me a better, I think the dampening them gives a better ripped look. So let's do that. Let's just do this here. These in here. I apologize. This is, again, a little bit difficult to do for me around the angles of the camera, but that does that. There we go. We get to sort of chunk that out. So now what I will do is let this finish drying up for the day, and we'll come back to it tomorrow. And then once it's dry, we're just going to hit it with a shot of spray paint. And that's really all I did for the other black sail, was I hit it with a shot of spray paint. So I'm going to let that sort of hang down and leave that be where it is. And then one last cut, and then we'll cut to the finish of this one. So I'll be back momentarily. Okay, so it is now dry. It is now much later, and it's sort of solid-esque, and you can see the spots that kind of shredded on it. That should work for that particular sail. So now the last thing to do is to color it. Now again, I'm doing, these are black sails, so this will be black. I imagine that if you're doing cloth sails and want to try this technique, you could get away with an ivory color, and so forth. So, again, this is for black sails. So I am out in my spray area, and I am going to be using rattle can. Obviously, you can hear it. See, the can is rattling, therefore it is rattle can. What I use is Plastic Soldier Army Spray, and this is German gray, right? So this is dark German gray. I think you can, there we go. This is moderately difficult to get in the States. I happen to be near a hobby shop that keeps me in line. And this is a gray that I like. It's very difficult for me to find the type of gray that I want to use for something like this. It allows me to get toward a black and still the black shades, so it still works. It also allows me to come back up using different shades of gray to get and overall give a faded black look, which is what I'm after, which is why I use it as often as I do. So now again, this is very straightforward. It's just spray, right? And all we're doing is giving it a hit on both sides. And you can see just doing it on the one side, it already sort of shows through, but getting both sides of it assures a fairly even color. And the other thing it does is it helps it hold shape. This acts like a lacquer and I don't want to say a hardening resin because it's not, but it helps the glue or the shape of the glue to just sort of hold. So now that little curl that's right there, that's going to sort of stay with it as it's finished. So that's it. That is the process for getting this done. So I will let this cure up and then we'll go back to the main board for the last little couple of moments. Okay, we are now back at the main bench. And there we go. This little quick tutorial-ish, as quick as it ends up being, on how I plan on how I'm doing these sails is done. Again, for you guys who are doing this kit your way, these are good sails. These sails are good. They're very, very nice. There's a nice texture to them, and they give this nice full look. So there's all kinds of different ways you can make them look patched and things like that. And that's actually a really nice piece to use. For what I want, however, I have to hack off the yard arms, and I am going to go with these. I now need to go through and figure out which sails are what, so I can figure out which one's got to be shredded and which one aren't. But you can see the technique I'm using, right? This shredding is, I'll be going through after I put them on the yard arms and hang them up. A little bit of dry brushing, a little bit of, I may even use an airbrush to highlight little bits, right? But for the most part, this is going to give me the look I'm after. And with them being all beat up and shredded, the next thing I need to do, right, is come through here and figure out, which sails go where. So, I mean, if you notice, the way these are done, it looks like they want you to put them on top down. And I'm kind of wondering how that works. I have a feeling, and those of you who have done ships like this previously will probably say it might be difficult to be working underneath. So that's something I need to figure out, is whether it works better to go top down or bottom up. I suspect going bottom up is better, but I don't know. This is where I need to do thinking, and I need to understand how this all works. The other thing I need to do is figure out what sails is where, right? So which one of these, so this is G3, so this is actually this guy right here. And he goes there. He's the top of the mainmast, right? So that's that one. And where is 4? So anyway, I don't need to make you guys figure all this out while I'm doing it. There it goes. That must be it. So a center sail on the foremast. So anyway, so those are the sails. Those are how I did them. Some of them are going to look like this, which are mostly intact. Others are going to be nothing but shreds, and they're going to be a little creative to do. Like the ones that, I think they're called stays, the ones that go across, like across here. Where's these guys? think they're the last ones they show putting in. But these guys, these sails here. So, all right, so this one doesn't show much, right? So here, this sail shredded, this sail shredded. Now there also was, if I recall correctly in the picture, and I'll have to go back and look, there's a couple that hang across here, and they're just tatters as well. I might just be remembering that. But I will go back and look. And anyway, that's where we are. I've kind of waffled a bit again. I apologize for that, sort of. But there you go. I hope that this technique gives you help. And then again, while this cures up, I'm just going to let that sit. And this is actually how I store them, by the way. So I take these with their appropriate sail, and I actually store them set apart on top of their plastic sail. So it helps them keep the form and so forth. Something I have found, if I need something to keep more of a shape and I need to lock this in and sort of make it hard, I can actually hit this with a bit of resin. I don't, not fiberglass, right? So you could use fiberglass resin, but I actually use a casting resin that's used for surface mark on 3D printing. And I'll put it down below because I don't remember off the top of my head. And that, especially on an unseen area. So like in here, I could put it here and it cures up in minutes. And it can sort of help lock that into shape if I need that. But I kind of want that floppy look that we have here. Anyway, there we go. That was how I am going to do these sails and how these sails are done. And basically I will be doing those up as we get to those, which is going to be much further down on the build. And there we go. And I hope this was helpful, informative, and until next time, happy modeling.